Okay, so you've got the 4 walls made for your Trinket box and you've got them dry fit together. Now it's time to start thinking about adding the bottom. All right, we take a look at the instructions and we see a picture right here. All right, the picture has a rabbit around the edge and it's about the size of your box. Here is what one looks like in real life. The bottom here has rabbits cut all the way around the edge. We remove half of the material like that, and the idea is that it will fit directly into the bottom of the box like this. Now the instructions tell you to make it 12 by 7, but really you want to make it to almost the exact size of your box. And before you do that, you want to make sure that your box is dry fit to the tightest dimensions you can possibly get. What you want to avoid are these little tiny gaps right here. This can get tighter. This block can come down tighter. Same thing right here. All right, so I'm going to show you some techniques that allow us to get those tighter. First of all, we can try clamping it. All right. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so another technique that we can use is a rubber mallet. But a rubber mallet, you must use one of these, because if your fingers are longer than the thickness of the piece of wood, pounding like this won't do any good, because you just keep hitting the ends of the fingers. So you want to have something like this, a little over the edge. All right, now I've got it nice and tight. All right, those are nice and tight. And let's see here, those are nice and tight. Now I can see if I can get these a little tighter. I like that, but now I have gaps here and there, so let's go like this. All right, as I look at these corners, then I do not see any gaps for the most part. Now if you look really closely, you'll see a gap there and a gap there, but I can pound all day and I'll never get any closer, because this one is touching and that one is touching. So these two are holding it from closing it up. And that goes all the way back to when I was on the box finger jig cutting them. All right, but I'm happy with the way everything is here. Looks like I could probably close a little gap right there. So let me just give that another little tap. That's going to be good enough. Okay, the next thing is I want to make sure it is square. All right, put this on here. And I want to look to make sure that it is square. I'm looking for any type of gap through there. So I want to wiggle this back and forth until it appears to be square. I could also put this in here, like so. And hard to show up on camera here, but I'm pretty darn happy with the way that fits. So I feel comfortable saying that this box is now as square as it's gonna get. Yeah, I like that. Okay, now that it's square, it's time to measure. I'll get my dimensions for the bottom. Now you have to be careful with your tape measures. Always check the tabs to make sure that the tab is straight. If you have a bent one like this, you might get some faulty readings and it might not transfer over to the machine. You might get a reading with this tape measure, but when you go to the machine and set the fence, you'll have something different. Okay? All right. So we're going to set this one aside. This is a better tape measure because it's nice and straight. All right, so I set this on here like so, and if I look real carefully, I don't know if you're going to see it on the screen, but if you look real carefully, I am at 7 and 15 sixteenths. I'm sorry, 6 and 15 sixteenths. And then this one is 11 and 7/8. Okay, 11 and 7/8 and 6 and 15 sixteenths. So now I need to go and cut a board exactly to that size. I happen to have one ready for you right off the screen here, and we'll put this on here and check to see how accurate I am. And I'm feeling for it right here, and I like it. Okay, so now I'm satisfied. I'm ready to go to the dado table saw. That's table saw number 3, with the dado blade installed. All right, to perform this operation, you're going to need to be at table saw number 3 that it has the dado blade installed, and you are going to be using this here height gauge or depth gauge, depending on which way you use it, and you're going to be bringing over your bottom piece, which is going to be a 1/2 inch thick, hopefully a 1/2 inch thick. Now, how do you test to see what it is? Well, you take your depth gauge and you turn it on. And it looks like my battery's dying a little bit, but we're going to see what we can do here before it dies. And I'm going to go ahead and lift it up on there. It is 0.486, so it's really close to a 1/2 inch. Okay, I'm going to turn it off to save the battery, and we'll set that aside. Now, we are going to come over here, we're going to set the top aside, we're going to lower that blade down. The dado blade is basically a sandwich of blades, and so there's an outside blade on here and another outside blade here. You want to select one of the inside blades. We call them the chipper blades. And you want to align that blade with this white line right here. That's about top dead center. And then you want to bring your depth gauge over here. And we're going to see, hopefully the battery lasts long enough for this. 0 is pretty close there. We're going to set this on top of that chipper blade. And we're going to take away half of my material, which is, we called it a 1/2 inch, so we're looking to make it 0.25. And right there, and it's 0.245. Remember, it was 0.486, so that's about half. This is, if I doubled that, it would be 0.49. And that's about half of my material. So I'm pretty happy with that adjustment right there. So now I have the blade height set, and I am ready to set the fence. Now I want to remind you, on your box, you were told to make these walls a 1/2 inch. Sometimes kids make them a 1/2 inch, sometimes kids make them a little bit more. Whatever your walls are, that's what you want to set the fence to. Mine happens to be a 1/2 inch because I followed instructions. I'm going to do all 4 edges of this bottom piece. I'm going to do all 4 edges of this board. When I do the end grains, I'm going to need the miter gauge. Okay, so let's go ahead and fire this up. Immediately, I am a little concerned. I have too much material right here, so I'm going to check to see if this is going to fit. Yes, it is. So the blade does have a 1/2 inch blade, and that means I've probably taken off too much. Don't fear, don't throw this away. The way this is going to fit into the box is we can fix that later on, okay? Trust me on this. But I am going to make an adjustment, and I am going to move the fence. I'm going to bring this in just a little bit. I can always remove more material later on. So now though, how do I get rid of that? Well, let's do this. Let's see here. That's gone. Now we'll do this edge over here. I'm going to go like this. I'm going to do just a test cut and see. What I want to try here is, does it fit? Does it fit lengthwise? And yes, it does. It will fit in there. In fact, it fits quite easily because I took too much material off. But I want to make sure that it also reaches this edge right there. Okay, and it is really close. I could probably move the fence out just a hair. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to touch it just a hair. That's going to save me some sanding down the way. All right. Now I'm going to finish this cut because I'm happy with the dimensions. One thing I got right is I am removing about half of this material. So I got that part right. Now let's see how it fits. Again, let's see how it fits this way. All right. I like it. It's kind of hard on my camera here. So, yep. So this direction it fits, but now I have to move this and this. All right, let's go. Now I don't need this anymore. I can just go like that. I want to use a push block for that. So let's go ahead and fire this up. I am going to move the fence in just a bit, just a touch. Just a touch, because I can always move it out. I can always move it back out. Okay, it doesn't fit. And that's because I adjusted the fence. I probably had it right the first time. But I was just being a little cautious because of that very first cut. So, I am going to move the fence back out just a little bit. Now remember, I'm going to be taking off a little bit of material there. I just moved the fence out a little bit, maybe a 1/16th, maybe even a 32nd. Whatever I moved it out, I'm going to take it off there and I'm going to take it off there. So I'm going to take it off double, which means I don't want to move the fence very much. Remember, your box is dry fit. There is no glue in there. So if you force this in there, you're going to push the fingers apart. So you don't want that to, you don't want to do that at all. You want it to fit in without much effort. And look, I can get it. It fits in right here. Comes down here, and I missed a little bit right there. I think I'm just going to try to recut it. No fence adjustment whatsoever. Yes, it fits. It fits just right. Now, I have a gap right there. That's my first mistake. That was the mistake on my very first cut, right? I took off too much. Don't worry, that's fine. I can live with that. What I'm going to do is, after I glue it all up and sand it all up, I'm going to put some putty in there and then scrape it off and try to shape a nice 90-degree corner there. I maybe will put some putty in there, but I don't know. The smaller gaps, I don't really have to. But I do like this. I like the way this looks right here. This is going to come together nicely. So now I'm going to go back to my bench. I'm going to take this apart and glue it all up and put this together. Here's a tip for gluing it up. Open up the box like I have it laid out right here, and then just take some glue and drizzle it across. You don't need a lot at all. Just drizzle it across the fingers like this, and then fold it up, and the glue will go right into the middle of those fingers. Should be pretty tight anyway by the time you put it together. And of course the last fingers are a little bit trickier, so we just kind of treat those a little differently. Anytime you're pounding on the fingers like this, you really want to use a piece of wood to spread that pressure around so that you don't end up breaking a finger off. There we go. And I think I've covered how to make a video, or how to make a box square earlier in the video. Plus, you've got this to help you. This will help you keep it square. So you just put a little drizzle of glue right around here. And that should also help you make this square. And again, you want to close those gaps up. So put something underneath here while you are tapping on it. Okay? And you gotta work fast, because that glue inside those fingers is setting up and getting sticky. All right? I'm going to sign off and work on this. Good luck.